Sunday, September 14th, 2025. Welcome back to the show. Today is a special one. An in-depth, single-story episode focused on a case that has rattled a community and raised questions about how immigration enforcement intersects with real lives. It's a Sunday, a day many of us save for slower news and deeper conversations, and I'm giving you the time to understand not just what happened, but why it matters and what could come next. Let me introduce you to Harjit Kaur, a 73-year-old grandmother from El Sobrante in the Bay Area. She's described by neighbors and family as a quiet, steady presence who's lived in the community for years. On what should have been a routine immigration appointment, one of those check-ins that many of us would consider ordinary, she was detained by ICE. The twist you'd expect in a headline becomes something more human here. A life, a grandmother, someone who has navigated this process for years with compliance and patience, suddenly moved from Northern California to Bakersfield, hours away from home, family, and the everyday rhythm of her life. Advocates say she attended all required appointments, did what she was told, and complied with the system's demands. ICE initially cited privacy rules and an ongoing review for not releasing specific reasons for detention, but the cases stayed active as of September 13, 2025. Her legal team is seeking release on humanitarian grounds, underscoring concerns about age, health, and the ability of family to visit across long distances. The transfer to Bakersfield is more than a logistical hiccup. It places practical barriers in front of her family's ability to provide care, monitor health needs, and stay connected to a support network that has sustained her for decades. Let's walk through what happened in more detail and what it means beyond the individual case. A scheduled check-in in San Francisco ends with detention and a transfer to a facility far from home. The timing matters, a move that abruptly changes daily routines, caregiving dynamics, and the safety net for a person at an advanced age. Community advocates have mobilized quickly, organizing petitions and rallies in support of release. Local legal aid groups say they've reached out to ICE and DHS for clear answers, but the information landscape remains murky. And the political moment around immigration policy, often focused on broader debates about border control and immigration status, lands here as a very personal human story. What happens when a routine administrative step becomes a detention that stretches across miles and months? To understand the stakes, it helps to place this within the larger framework of how detention decisions are made, what standards of care exist for older detainees, and how family networks are affected when a loved one is detained far from home. Critics argue that federal guidance encourages consideration of humanitarian factors and alternatives where possible, especially for seniors with health concerns. Supporters of ICE say that removals and detentions are not about punishment, but about enforcing laws and maintaining public safety. In this case, the contradiction between a supposed compliance history and an abrupt, distant detention has intensified questions about due process, transparency, and humane treatment. Beyond the immediate drama, there are broader implications. How do we ensure access to legal representation when someone is relocated across state lines? How do health needs get managed in a system where medical records transfer between facilities can be inconsistent? And for communities like the Bay Area, what does this say about the human cost of immigration enforcement when it collides with decades of residency and established community ties? We'll also look at what could come next. Will there be humanitarian parole considerations? Could there be court order releases or reviews that grant more timely access to family visits and medical care? I'm speaking with legal experts and advocates who are watching this case closely to parse potential outcomes and timelines, because in cases like these, timing is everything. The people involved deserve clarity, compassion, and a process that respects their humanity while balancing legal obligations. Why does this matter to you, as a listener tuning into a show that aims to unpack immigration stories with depth and nuance? Because this story isn't just about one person in Bakersfield, it's about how immigration policy translates into lived experience. It asks us to consider what humane care should look like within enforcement, how families navigate a system built around rules, but lived in a reality full of care, fear, and resilience, and what accountability looks like when the system moves a beloved elder far from home. As we explore, you'll hear timelines, context, voices from advocates and family members, and a clearer sense of where this could lead. We'll connect the dots between local advocacy efforts in the Bay Area and the federal mechanisms that govern detention decisions, shedding light on why this single story has become a touchstone for questions about dignity, procedure, and humanity in immigration enforcement. Before we close, a quick note on the people who are working tirelessly behind the scenes: legal teams, community organizers, and the local officials who've asked for reviews and procedures to be reconsidered. This isn't a distant policy debate. It's a story about a grandmother, a family, and a community asking for a fair, transparent process that respects human life. And that distinction, that personal dimension, changes how we should hear every update, every court filing, and every piece of advocacy surrounding this case. If you want more background, if you want to stay updated as this unfolds, visit visaverge.com for ongoing reporting and expert analysis, where we'll continue to track what's next and what it means for families like Harjit Kaur's. Thank you for spending this time with me today on this deep dive episode. This is the kind of story that deserves careful listening, careful questions, and careful storytelling, because it's not just about policy. It's about people who deserve dignity and a fair shot at staying connected to the lives they've built. I'll be back with updates as this case develops, but for now, we hold space for Harjit Kaur, her family, and the community rallying for humane, transparent action.